sort of, to just show you how to use grisaille, but in this case we're going to use dark and light. Okay, that's a very rough sketch. Okay, now remember, you draw using negative space, remember that? Okay, so there's my finger. Now here I've made a mixture of dark to light, masked black just mixed with white. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start off by giving it a light wash, very thin, just to tone it. Can you see there? We just call this a tone. It just takes away the fear of that there is some color there. Okay, now I'm going to go to use a little bit of a smaller brush here. I'm using these angle brushes because they give you a lot more detail. They're much nicer to work with. So now I want to start adding dark and light. So now I've just given it a bit of a tone. I'm going to, here I can see quite a bit of dark sitting here on my finger. So I'm going to start off by putting the dark in. So I keep using my color, but it's quite thin. It's almost like spit. Not runny. If I look there, it's a little bit translucent almost. But this is quite a nice thick paper, so it absorbs the paint quite quickly. So now I'm going to put in, okay, there is my dark sitting there. Can you see? It's quite thin at this point. And there's a bit of a shadow kind of sitting over here. I'm just going to roughly put it in. Now in order to make that stand out, the light is sitting over there, right at the edge. I'm going to put a bit of the dark in. So it probably will take a few layers before it actually takes. Because paper is much more absorbent. Can you see when I put the dark against where I want the light, it automatically stands out. So remember, in all paintings, in anything you look at, you always have dark against light, hot against cold. We'll get to that later on. Now I'm going to add in my light. So if I look here, there's more light here than what there is there. So I'm just going to put like a little bit of a mid light around about here somewhere. Now your first layers will probably not look as great because it takes a while for it to take. So that's my first layer. So now I want to make it a little bit lighter here. Now I'm going to go down here. So very thin, don't make the paint thick. Now the interesting thing is you also start working with the direction of the item you paint. So I'm working, the finger is round this way, so I'm painting this way. You see I'm painting this way. Okay, so now I want to add more, excuse me, more dark in. So I go back to my dark. And you can see I almost get rid of the excess paint here on the side. Can you see that? Okay, so now I'm going to add more dark. And now the technique that we're using is called wet in wet, where we're going to blend the colors into each other. So now I need to start going to a smaller brush because I need to start blending. Now to blend is a color there, another color there, and now there's two ways to blend. I can blend the wet color into the color next to it. That's a quick blend. Can you see there? And can you see I'm lifting it up like this, hatching. Or I can have a color, wipe my brush, don't wet it, second color, wipe brush, don't wet it, and blend. And this is a quick blend. That's a slow blend, sorry, this is a quick blend. Can you see the difference? Can you see the difference that's happening there? And can you see I'm lifting it up? When I do a cross blend, I put my color down, clean my brush, second color. Cross blend means I'm going to cross it into each other. Can you see that's a different type of blend? I can add to it. Here I'm adding to the cross blend. Can you see there? Put the color, wipe the brush, don't wet the brush. I only wet the brush excuse me, when I need to when the paint becomes too tacky. Can you see that's a much, this you can see almost the lines there, you can't see almost the lines. Okay, so that's a cross blend. So now we're going to start blending. So now I need my finger again. So here I've got more light. So now I'm going to use a smaller brush, slightly more paint, little bit more. Now I'm going to start adding the light. Can you see that I'm adding there? I can see quite a bit of light. Now I'm going to blend, cross blend this into a mid-tone here, into the base tone, which is the darkest part. And can you see I can get quite a nice, can you see it's quite nice and rounded. So I've got more light at the top here. Now the amazing thing about this is when you put your skin tone over this, there's two ways you can do it. You can either do it this way, where we just use dark and light, and then you add like a skin tone over it, which you do with a glaze, or you can add the skin tone into the mix already. So I'll show you that later. But you see it's becoming more three-dimensional. So I'm just going to add a little bit more dark here. I want to remember, sometimes if your light doesn't look light enough, it's not because it's the light, it's because the dark is not dark enough. So the moment I add more dark, can you see the light stands out? You see that? So now here, excuse me, I'm going to add a little bit more dark. So the more layers I put on, the more it starts blending into each other. Then you get a wet in wet blend, wet paint in wet paint. Because it's paper, it absorbs quickly. It's going to take a few layers before I start getting that effect. So there I've got a bit of a feel of my finger going that way. To add a bit more light here. So it's still very absorbent at the moment because of the fact that it's paper, not canvas. I want the darker. Can you see how many layers I've put already on here? Probably 6 or 7, I guess. I don't keep count of it now. So now I'm starting to work wet on wet. And I'm cross blending, so my brush is not straight, I'm giving it a slight curve like that, so I get a nice smooth blend. So now here the paint's starting to adhere, because starting to blend into each other, because it's getting a little bit wetter now.
And when you paint with oil paint, you do exactly the same?
Same, this technique, it doesn't matter if it's oil or acrylic. This actually, if you can make acrylics look like oil by adding a slow drying medium to it, so you can make it act like oil. But the nice thing about doing it in acrylic is that you could actually do the grisaille or the verdaccio bottom layer in acrylic, and then you do your oil color, your skin colors with the glazes over it. So basically, this is almost like using no tan. You want the dark and the light. The more the dark and the light is, the more three-dimensional your painting is going to start looking. You see it's starting to shape. This is a bit dry here because of the paper. So I'm hoping that it will dry quickly, then I can just do a quick glaze over it. I'll show you guys what it looks like when you glaze. Just want to add a bit more light here. When you add more light, the name for adding more light is called ébauché. You see the finger is starting to look quite three-dimensional, just with the dark and the light. Okay. It can probably go a bit more darker, but I just want to show you what it's going to look like when I add, or shall I show it to you just now rather, when this, yeah, I think I'll do that. I'll let this dry, and then she'll do her little exercise, and then I'll show you over this what it's going to look like when we start adding a glaze over it. Okay, so we'll do that just now. So that's all I want you to do.